been asked to take a random drug screening by your job?
Maybe this has happened after someone at work found out you had a medical marijuana card. Can you be fired for smoking weed because you are a patient or an adult in a legal state? That's what this video explores. I'm Tom, and you can find me at CannabisIndustryLawyer.com. Here with a question we get a lot at the firm. Can your employer fire you for legal cannabis use?
Off-duty cannabis use often requires additional protections to be written into the law that legalize cannabis in your state.
And they may not be there when your state legalizes it and has to be added later by an amendment.
Without these protections, both employers and their employees can be confused regarding whether or not someone can be disciplined or even fired for their cannabis use.
Even in legal states, walking into your job, smoking a joint may still be a crime, as most states prohibit public consumption, and your employer may have the right to maintain a drug-free work zone. In fact, the Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1998 may require your employer to have a drug-free workplace policy in order to get money from federal contracts. There are also federal roadblocks that can bar plaintiffs from winning any wrongful termination actions in court. For example, in the case of Coates versus Dish Network, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that an employer could be fired for using medical marijuana even if the employee was using it off-duty pursuant to a valid prescription.
Brandon Coates, who was a quadriplegic, used medical cannabis to control leg spasms.
I know what an impairment is when I do use it at night. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not impaired. I have a clear mind. I always did good at my job.
He used marijuana only during non-working hours, but was fired after testing positive for marijuana during a random drug test.
Coates sued and argued that the off-duty conduct law in Colorado made it illegal for an employer to fire an employee for engaging in lawful activities outside of work.
This court is about to issue the most powerful, comprehensive legal opinion on medical marijuana in the world.
However, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled against him. The court held that even though medical marijuana was legal under state law, it was still illegal under federal law and therefore not protected as a lawful activity. This ruling has been echoed by courts in California, Oregon, and Washington. It remains to be seen whether other states will follow suit. However, cannabis could be moving to Schedule 3 in 2024, which also means that many of these cases could be revisited and overturned because the federal government will begin recognizing marijuana as medicine for the first time ever. While recreational marijuana use is legal in my state of Illinois, employers are still allowed to ban the use and possession of marijuana in the workplace. This means you can be fired for smoking weed in Illinois, even if you are not impaired at work. Employers can also fire employees who test positive for marijuana, even if they are not impaired at work. However, they must have a legitimate reason for doing so. This could include that you were visually impaired or that your job performance was affected by your marijuana use, or your employer has a drug-free workplace policy. If you are fired for smoking weed in Illinois, you may be able to file a wrongful termination lawsuit. However, these cases are often difficult to win, as we have previously discussed. You need to prove that your employer's decision to fire you was discriminatory or that it was not based on a legitimate reason. If you think that you have a claim, first you need to get an employment lawyer that does what we call in law
plaintiff work. That lawyer will want to know the 4 elements of the cause of action.
These elements must be factually alleged in your complaint, which is just a technical name for a lawsuit.
1. You were an employee of the defendant. 2. You were terminated from your employment. 3. Your termination was because of a protected activity. And 4. You suffered damages as a result of your termination.
Your lawyer will ask you all sorts of questions about exactly what happened. They will ask you who, what, where, why, and when. Specifically, your complaint must allege all the relevant facts regarding to the date and time of your termination, the reason your employer gave for your termination, the evidence that you have that your termination was wrongful, such as witness statements, emails, or other documentation, and the damages that you have suffered as a result of your termination. If you have any questions for being fired about your legal cannabis use, don't call me. I won't take your case. I'm an Illinois lawyer and I'm strictly corporate cannabis. You want to search for an employment lawyer near me, and you don't want one that your company will pick. Lawyers, they usually pick a side. They either represent the plaintiff, that's the wrongfully terminated employee, or the defense, that's the company that has lots of cash to pay high-quality law firms tens of thousands of dollars a month to fight you and say that they did nothing wrong. Also, from my recollection of law school, the guys smoking weed were me and my friend from Jamaica. End of list. Granted, it was Milwaukee in 2008. Wisconsin still does not have a medical cannabis program. Because many lawyers do not use the product, they may be hesitant to take your case. When that happens, you know where you can turn to find these types of answers that you need? The normal legal committee. That's the NLC. At the NLC, you will find lawyers like me and criminal lawyers, maybe even employment lawyers in your state that can fight for your rights to legally use cannabis as an adult or medical patient, especially when you're off duty from work. If you have more questions about the cannabis industry or laws, please drop them in the comments and I'll respond to you. And drop us a like while you're down there, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell to get notice of when we go live with cannabis legalization news of the week on Sundays.